Welcome to the Bonded Podcast Foundation Series, hosted by Dr. Patty and Lizzie Shutt,
where we explore attachment healing and the bonds that shape us as children, as adults, and as parents.
We talk about the joy, the complexity, and the challenges that come with forming deep human connection.
From before conception through early childhood and far beyond.
Whether you're expecting, adopting, navigating loss, or supporting someone you love,
or simply wanting to better understand yourself and the ways your early experiences still impact you today,
these conversations are for you.
The podcast isn't just about raising secure children.
It's about healing ourselves, breaking generational cycles, and creating relationships rooted in safety, trust, and authenticity.
You'll hear from experts and parents alike on topics like fertility and perinatal loss,
adoption, returning to work,
temperaments, identity shifts,
and the emotional realities that often go unspoken.
So settle in,
take a breath,
and know that wherever you are on this journey, you're not alone.
You are not alone. Welcome back to the Bonded Podcast. Today we have a best-selling author on the podcast, Katie May. She is a DBT board certified clinician, and we'd love to hear a little bit about, your practice and what inspired you to write this book right now. Me and Patty both did read the book. So, you share a lot of your own personal journey in your story. So I imagine, that is what has inspired you becoming a clinician, but why the book and why now?
Yeah, thanks, Lizzie, and I'm excited to be here. So I wrote the book for parents. I'm a therapist. I lead a team of other therapists. We specialize in working with high-risk teenagers. And what we found over about 5 years of working with teens is there were a lot of skills that were missing that parents really needed to know and practice and be able to reinforce in the home environment in order for teens to see the kind of change that the whole family wanted for them. And so it was like this skills gap that I noticed, as well as my own personal story and a lot of what I wish that my dad did or knew that he didn't know, that I was able to put into the book so both sides are present. So parents can see themselves in the story, parents can see their teens in the story, and professional recommendations and skills are threaded throughout each of those stories.
Yeah, it is really potent with so many resources. So we'll definitely dive into some of them today.
Yeah, I just want to say, really appreciate your openness and authenticity of really sharing your own experience, because I feel like that, number one, can really build hope for people that I think is often really needed with families and, of course, teens and young adults struggling with these kinds of really, really difficult emotions and behaviors that have resulted in it. So I think that's just really, really touched me for sure. And I know how much it really helps others when people can relate to them.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I found, so I wrote my parts of the story because I am a writer. I remember being 6 years old and writing in my journals and notebooks as my way of coping and processing. It's just who I am. And so it made sense to include that personal piece in the story. But the feedback that I get from parents a lot in DMs and in emails is, yes, these skills were so helpful, but knowing that you went through this and you got to the other side is equally, if not more helpful. Like, I see my teen in your story and I feel hope that they can get through this too. So it did become such a powerful piece of why things work, even though I didn't consider that when I was putting that piece in.
Yeah, I really do see, I've been teaching DBT myself for 30 years. I happen to be probably a very open and self-disclosing therapist, a little bit more than probably anyone on my DBT team. And over the years, people have really appreciated that. They often say what actually really helped them was hearing that I struggled with something and have been able to use skills that have helped me and still do. That it's not like I'm better and everything's fine, but that I also continue to need to, because people, it's one of these things that DBT is not, it's not like something that just heals your wound and that's it. It's cultivating, skillful living.
Right. It's a practice. And I love that you're being so authentic in that work. I think that's what carries my work as well, is the mistakes or failures, so to speak, and how we overcame them and the skills that we use to get through them to show that these skills really do work, but they are a practice. They're not a one and done type thing.
Yeah. I know I have a bunch of questions. My first one is really about your title. I'm curious about "You're on fire, it's fine." Because I had my own interpretations, and I just wanted to hear from you.
Yeah, people tell me their interpretations, and sometimes they're right on, and sometimes they're a new spin on it, which works for them. But for me, the title came from this idea of when you are biologically sensitive. In the book, I call it a fire feeler. It feels like you are on fire with your emotions. They're big and overwhelming and all-consuming. And what often happens with well-meaning caregivers and folks in the environment of this fire-feeling individual is they say things like, "You're fine. It's no big deal. You'll get through this." And it feels like a tiny little squirt gun trying to put out this big, overwhelming fire. So the title was meant to convey that these emotions feel like a big fire, and oftentimes the environment is minimizing or invalidating that, most times trying to be helpful, but not so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I kind of read into it. I thought about that as a possibility, right? Because that is true that that happens. And then I thought, well, maybe it's also like it could be depending on how it's said,
Yeah.
it could be a validation on it's fine to have these big feelings.
Well, there
It's
you go. I like that too.
okay, right? And this sense of, depending on the environment and the person you're with, and a sense of, validation, like it's okay to have big, 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 intense feelings. I'm okay with it. You're safe with me.
Well, I love that. That is true too. It is okay. And I think that version applies just as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know in the individual, it doesn't feel fine. And so saying it's fine or you're fine, can be incredibly invalidating. And I'm sure, Katie, as you know, as a DBT therapist, something that you say to one person could be incredibly helpful and validating, and to another person invalidating. So I think that's the tough part, is figuring out, essentially, first of all, what's happening with the person, what do they need, right?
Yeah, it's like validation is in the interpretation of the receiver, not necessarily in the words of the giver. I learned this as a parent myself, that what I thought was validation, therapy learned validation, did not land with my teenager. In fact, they would say things like, "You're my mom, not my therapist. Stop using that language with me." So I had to learn a different way to validate. And I think that's helpful for folks to hear as well, is like the words don't matter as much as how the person receives them and how it makes them feel and how it lands with them. So figuring out what that language is more important than saying an exact right thing.
Totally. Yeah, you give a lot of different types of validation examples in the book, which I thought was really helpful and really speaks to, different types of validation are going to land differently for different teens. So it makes
So
sense.
just another shout out again, so in case people did not hear me, right? You're on fire. It's fine, right? All right. So by Katie May, just again, really, really great book. And it reads really well. Love your writing. Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy to offer it to clients, to families. I think it's going to be a really helpful resource. I'm curious for you, because you are a DBT therapist as well. And are you offering this book along with your parenting class? Like, are you doing multi-family groups or separate groups?
I love this question. Yeah, so we actually started, when I started my practice and I grew into a group practice, we had started with teen-only groups, and we grew into recognizing the importance of having caregivers in treatment. So that was a trajectory and a learning experience in of itself. And we really put a lot of intentional thought into that. DBT to fidelity is parents and teens together learning the model. And we trialed that, and we had a few groups like that. But what we actually found, and part of it was because of space and how many people we wanted in our groups. And part of it was because we saw what was happening when we had teens learning skills in one setting and parents learning skills in their own setting. There was this level of transparency and authenticity, and especially on the parent side of things, this grief and shame and sadness and coming to terms with, this is not the life that I imagined, but I want to learn these skills and I want to do better for my teenagers. So there were just these like powerful, emotionally intimate moments that emerged that we made the intentional decision to keep them separate. And we do comprehensive DBT, so we have individual therapy and we include caregivers in that, and we make sure that skills are being integrated into families and practiced together. But in terms of our groups, we do keep them separate. The parent group is based on the book and the chapters of the book, but we also recommend that parents read it as part of our treatment plans when folks are working with us individually. So it all kind of works together holistically.
Great. Yeah, we had a very similar kind of experience and have done a lot of different things. And we're currently doing really both, where we have multifamily and we have a separate group for various reasons, where people aren't ready to come together. They can't get their schedules together. And we really have some families, parents that want the skills, but the teen is absolutely not in a place to come in and do, for whatever reason. So we have a lot of options, and I think that can help because, one size doesn't fit all, for sure.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying. I mean, part of what I find myself talking about with parents when I get these messages that are like, my teen is not ready for therapy. They do not want to come to therapy. And I'll say, well, you know what? There's great news that you can actually unilaterally create change with your teenager if you learn new skills and bring them into the home environment. So having a parent group is a powerful way to create change if a teen is not ready for treatment or not engaging in treatment.
Yeah. Since we are, our podcast kind of real theme is on attachment, and I am also a DBT therapist in a DBT certified program. So we do a lot of DBT, and we do a lot of treatment, not just for teens, but really I'm an adult therapist who often are treating adults who are really like children or teens. They've been struggling their whole life, right? Yeah. And so I think about in those adult relationships, in some ways the therapist becomes sort of a parent in some way. So where the therapy itself, there's an opportunity for healing. And I think about all of the skills, even the way that you laid them out in the book. I love it because what it's helping parents do when a child has maybe some attachment, even early trauma. Sometimes parents, things happen. A loss of one of the parents, a divorce, early kind of separation, maybe maternal depression, postpartum, all kinds of things that can impact attachment, or even the difficulties where a child, and this is what I see a lot, is where a child's temperament is so different than a parent's, where there's such a mismatch. So a lot of invalidation and difficulty for a primary care parent in raising that child. So they just experience all of these challenges early on, and how DBT, it's great because they're bringing it younger and younger. So it was adult, then teen, and now they have like the little kids, right? Which I think is really helpful because I see all these skills helping heal that relationship.
Yeah, it's the idea of being a rose being raised in the garden of tulips, right? And I see that regularly with parents who have other children, and there's this but this worked with my other children. It's not working with this child, and so that child gets unintentionally labeled like the problem in the situation, when in fact it's like you're saying, Patty, it's like a difference in temperaments, and we just need to learn a new way to approach it, a new way to connect with that child. And I think that's really hard sometimes when you have to learn all new skills to connect with one of your children.
There's a lot of responsibility, like taking on, in like, okay, parents, it's not just send your kid to therapy, but you are part of this system. And I find that a challenging piece sometimes to like, okay, parents, you got to get on board too, and you got to learn these things too. Um, but yeah, once they really recognize the connection of these emotions, temperament are driving behavior, I feel like it can just be an aha moment in so many ways. But I'd love for you to speak more about that connection between emotions and behavior, because a lot of times parents will see these problem behaviors and not really understand what's going on, beneath them or why they're happening?
Yeah, so bringing us back to a biologically sensitive individual feels like they are on fire with their emotions. And so if you think about it that way, right, I want you to, if you're a parent or an individual listening, think about a loved one. They're on fire with their own emotions. They're all consumed with it. It's burning them up inside. It's big, it's overwhelming, it's painful. So when you can think about it that way, then it makes sense that that person's brain comes up with a strategy to make that fire go down or make that fire go out. And oftentimes these are our impulsive or self-destructive behaviors like self-harm, suicidal behaviors, drug and alcohol use, binging, numbing out in front of the TV, scrolling for hours. And so when we have an individual with these big and overwhelming emotions, the natural tendency is like, I want this to go away. This doesn't feel good. It's very painful. And unfortunately, these self-destructive behaviors work to make that pain go down quickly. And then oftentimes are also coupled with their environment then seeing how much pain they're in and validating their pain, giving them a lot of warmth and attention for being in so much pain. So this behavior worked for them. It's the solution to the problem, but to the people that love them, it very much is a problem because it's harmful to them and it could be life-threatening to them.
Yeah, there's really that difference of positive and negative reinforcement that you talk about in the book of, yeah, when they're doing self-destructive behaviors and then you give them this long, deep, connected conversation after that they really enjoy, that's just going to reinforce them.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that we don't give our kids warmth, attention, or reinforcement, but I like to teach parents to do it in consistent and measured doses rather than reactive doses. So we don't wait until there's a crisis to go sit on our teen's bed, ask them how they're doing, give them comfort and attention. We do that with intention and consciously and regularly so that it doesn't just come after these self-destructive or dangerous behaviors. So we're reinforcing on a consistent basis.
Yeah, which is so hard. I mean, just in real life, witnessing, people by the time they get to us, Katie, and I'm sure you're no different, by the time they get to us, this has been going on a while. So there's a lot, they're all kind of in this sort of dynamic, even where the teen doesn't want any attention from the parent. They want it, they need it, right? But
Sure.
it's like,
It's painful.
of course they need
Yeah.
it, but they don't want it, right? And so it's hard for parents, and I see parents getting rejected when they do try those skills to go up and to approach and give attention around either positive things or neutral things, that they're then rejected. So I do a lot of coaching around the parents tolerating that. And I think that this is part of, I don't know how you work, but we will see parents without teens, but we will not see teens without parents.
Yeah. Similar that parents are a required part of teen treatment, but we also see parents in treatment who need support parenting, even if their teen doesn't come to our center. And I think what you're speaking to is something I see a lot as well, is like as parents start to learn and practice skills, they're not always received with like, hey, good job, mom. You're being more skillful now. I love this. This is great. Because the teen is still needing skills and hurting and practicing as well. And so it does take a level of tolerance of like the skillfulness that you're applying is not good or bad based on how your teen responds. That is also a practice. We also want to be mindful of these like short practices between weeks of sessions or group sessions and accountability. Like it's not 0 to 100. We're not just changing everything all at once. It's kind of like if you were going to turn a cruise ship, you wouldn't do a 180 at once because you'd probably capsize and there would be a lot of waves. So we need to be mindful of how slowly we're turning that ship so we're not creating too many waves.
Yeah. It's often a thing I say in a lot of my teaching is literally slower is faster. And so the parents sometimes who are pushing for faster change are often creating more waves that make it more difficult. So it's part of like really helping them to understand that literally, even for themselves, that slower is faster. They can't possibly make these changes super fast anyway.
Well, and I train a lot of therapists, and I find that dynamic of parents pushing for fast change is a very common one, and one that therapists struggle with, or newer therapists struggle with, because they feel a lot of pressure to meet some sort of expectation. And so I really love being able to break that down and look at what's behind that, because like anything that we do, behavior is communication, and we want to understand the emotion and intent behind it. And as a parent with a teenager who's had mental health struggles, in our family as well, I understand some of this at the personal level is that parents are tired and burnt out, and it hurts to see their kid hurting, and they don't want anyone to suffer anymore. And of course, they want their kid to get better faster because they don't want to see their kid hurt, and they want to go to work and not worry about if their kid's going to be alive when they get home. Like there's a lot of stress and tension and pain. And so of course, it makes sense that they want faster progress, and yet here we are, and we need to orient to what progress looks like in order for it to actually be effective.
I think about, just when it comes to attachment and healthy, secure attachment, which really is like we consider it like one of the, sort of foundational experiences in childhood. When somebody's able to experience that and grow up with some secure attachment, it's like they already have now this inner sort of resource that they can tap into. And unfortunately, when they don't, right, doesn't mean that they can't get that resource. And I think about that, first of all, with some of my clients, because sometimes they develop a greater sense of secure attachment through the therapeutic relationship. And certainly with teens, the goal is to try to have them have that with the parents. So our team is always trying to help those parents be able to, first of all, be able to attune, right? So I think about understanding their child, understanding the emotion, because it makes sense. You just got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that is that first part of like attunement. Okay. As parents are finally able to do that and hopefully not get dysregulated in the process, right? Because when you have a teen with really big emotions, they can spread just like fire, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
That's right. So I love how the teaching in here, the parental stress meter, right?
Yeah.
How teaching parents, that's always what we're trying to do, is try to teach them to tune into themselves, to know themselves, to regulate their own emotions, that they're really not gonna help if they run in on fire to fight fire, okay?
I think what you're saying is such an important thing for folks to hear about the teen and parent therapy process. It's setting off light bulbs in my brain, because what I see is a subset of therapies for teenagers that are very protective of it's teen only therapy and we're keeping your parent out. And there's almost this like polarization of parents as the one that is causing the pain, and therefore this is your safe space without them. And as a teenager, I went to therapy like that, and of course it was helpful, and I had great rapport with this nice, warm therapist. But that warmth never translated to my dad, who was sitting in the waiting room, and my home life outside of therapy was a really difficult thing. And so I think when we look at therapy for teenagers, there does need to be warmth, there does need to be rapport, but we also need to help parents have the skills to be able to do that for the teen themselves in all of those other hours that they're not in therapy. And that means using this parental stress meter and attunement to their own emotions. Like, how do I notice my own emotions escalating when I want to react or cast judgment or call names or yell, so that I can self-regulate, manage myself, and be able to model that for my teen, but also be there for my teen, so that they're not just relying on a therapist for their warmth and their needs to be met.
Yeah, and that's a lot of, listen, I'm not a family therapist. I am a psychologist, and I did some family training, and mostly what I've done is some DBT family coaching, because it's essentially teaching a lot of these tools and skills. And it's hard. It's really hard because people are often coming into us with these really serious, after a suicide attempt, it's tough to help a parent be able to process through that fear and have that fear, be there, because it's helpful, and certainly they can tune into it, but sometimes it gets in the way.
I see a trauma response, really, and I've worked with parents a lot on this. When you've had a child with a suicide attempt or some kind of big safety concern like that, you're more hypervigilant, you're having intrusive thoughts, you're always on, you're worried about this life-threatening event that occurred, and that makes sense because you want to keep your child alive. And we can't over-monitor all the time, so we need to bring the body back into this place of being centered and help support skills used for the teen.
Yeah.
But it's a process. That's not like a one session kind of thing.
No doubt. And I love just the way you call it. I think about other names for these skills, but the cope and cool down. Okay. So that, again, really helping the parent, first of all, recognize when they're dysregulated and that they're really not effective unless they can really step back and cool down and move back into the situation, resourced enough, stable, grounded, where they can even listen.
Yeah, there's something I talk a lot about with parents. It's called the transactional model, and it's the idea of how I respond influences you and how you respond influences me. So if you have a teenager in front of you who's really tense, who's crying, who's anxious, who's overwhelmed, and then, like you said, it's contagious, so you catch that and you start getting really frantic and tense and overwhelmed, and you respond with that energy, that continues to escalate the situation until one of you is at a point of panic or at a point of crisis, or someone punches a wall. You can't teach someone to swim when they're drowning. So when somebody is in that overwhelmed, flooded state of emotion, we're not going to be able to solve the problem anyway. And if I'm in that flooded state of emotion, I'm not going to be the right person to help you solve the problem. So I need to step away, calm myself down, use my skills, come back when I'm more centered.
Yeah, something that I really want to speak about and get into is radical acceptance. I love this idea, and I know it is so challenging for parents and just people in general, everyone, but really grounded in mindfulness, which is my practice. But yeah, I'd love for you to share more about radical acceptance and what that even looks like, why that isn't necessarily agreeing with teens' behavior or an excuse for their behavior, but how it's different.
Yeah, radical acceptance is one of my favorite things to talk about with parents, and I find that it's one of it has the most emotional depth when we talk about this topic in groups. And for me, what it comes down to is I see radical acceptance as a grieving process. And there's kind of two parts of this. So for any parent, you start with a child who relies on you for everything, who is perched on your hip, who is, giving you all of this positive praise and feedback. And as they grow older and more independent, which is expected and developmentally typical, you lose parts of them. And when you lose parts of them, you lose parts of yourself, and you have to evolve and become a new kind of parent to a new kind of child. So there's always a loss and a gain in this natural developmental process. But then when you add in this extra layer of, if you are parenting a teen who has mental health challenges, it is not necessarily the life that you imagined in parenting them. You didn't hold your child in your arms and think, oh, my child's going to self-harm one day. They're going to have cuts all over their arms. Like, that's not what you imagined. And so the way that you're parenting when you have a child with concerns is different than the life that you imagined. And you can forever and ever continue to wish that this wasn't what life was, to buck up against reality, to struggle, to think like, I just want them to get better and then everything will be okay. But that's not reality. So grieving that this is not the idealized version of parenting, but this is the life that I have, opens the door for being able to exhale, being able to be there and present in the moments that are real, and then problem solving around the reality that's true rather than the idealized version of that reality.
Yeah, really getting in touch what is reality and living in that place and choosing to move forward, make choices from that reality.
Exactly. And I really do think that it is grieving. You know, it's not like coming to acceptance of, oh, one day, yeah, I accept this. This is real. It's a lot of crying. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of processing, not for everyone, but for many people that I support, to coming to the place of here's where I am. Here's what my child needs from me. Here's who I am, because this is who my child is and what they need from me. So it's this evolution of identity and grieving of an idealized vision.
Yeah, I think even sometimes helping people recognize as parents, even the grief of, I may not have what my child needs. And certainly if you're a single parent, I mean, I'm fortunately not, and I was able to raise my kids with my spouse. And so they had really both of us who are very different. And I think that my kids really benefited from that because I have a very different temperament, personality, different strengths and abilities, and they benefited. But sometimes, sometimes parents don't have really what a child may need. And I do think that this is a place even of acceptance for a parent. Like, that's okay too. And I think I'm pretty sure you talk about the good enough parent, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I was in graduate school, my kid was about 18 months, and I had this professor who said she was young. She said something like, it's basically always the parent's fault. And so I was like, oh, let me ask about that. So I said, are you saying that there's no way I'm not going to mess up my kid? Like, what are you saying here? And she softened and she smiled and she said, well, yeah, you probably are going to mess up your kid, but guess what? It's okay, because there is this theory of the good enough parent, which posits that you really only need to get it right 20% of the time. Like, you don't have to be a perfect parent, but what's more important is how you repair harm, or how you respond when things didn't go as planned, and how you show up in all of those messy moments. It's not about the perfect moments. And that provided such comfort for me. I think my kid will tell you, I am 20% a good enough parent. That's all there is. So.
Yeah, that is a concept that we talk about again and again, of this rupture and repair, of how that really builds secure attachment too, of, yeah, how am I going to show up when the inevitable disagreements and challenges arise?
I think it's a really beautiful thing, because no relationship is perfect. I mean, I've been married for like 16 years. It's not been perfect. Like, I've had to have that skill of repair and apology and, returning when things are hard. And I see that in all of my relationships. And I don't think we need to, misconvey that there are perfect relationships. And when we teach our kids that they can repair harm and it's safe to have conflict or disagreement, then they're going to do better in life because of that.
Yeah, I wholeheartly agree. I think that, I again feel blessed because I received the teachings of DBT so long ago. And I've been able to, grow and nurture and develop them. And I do really believe that DBT helped me be a better parent. I mean, I got really good at repairing because, I'm not perfect. But I was fortunate enough to learn the skills of even accepting my own imperfection.
Yeah, which is such a hard thing.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall into blame or shame, but acceptance of who you are it's a beautiful gift for your children too.
Yeah. 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 I just wish, I mean, it's part of why we started this podcast, right? Is to really help inspire parents, whether they're new parents or, they're parents of teens or even adult children. I mean, I see a lot of people who come in are still struggling with adult children who are, failing to kind of really launch and thrive and get out in the world and really to help them first of all, know that it's never too late, right? And even if you don't, even for adults who, I have clients who are really, 50 years old, but they have a teen inside them that is on fire. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I do a lot of work with them around them, even parenting themselves, right? One of the other things I kind of wanted to point out that I really loved that you brought it up in the book and are teaching it is helping parents to really, even maybe it's part of the process of understanding, are you kind of a fix-it parent who wants to jump in and fix everything? Or are you someone who's like, there's no problem, sweep, sweep, sweep? Okay. That it's hard to be the parent that's like, oh God, there's a problem or there's like a lot of pain here. And can I just be with it and sit with it?
Yeah, there are patterns that I notice regularly in what you're talking about. One of those patterns, and they're like the invalidation patterns. One of those patterns is the dismiss it. It's not a big deal. You're too sensitive. I was just joking. You're fine. So that very dismissive invalidation. But the second one I would say is more of that fix it fast invalidation. And this is when you're oversimplifying solutions. You're saying things like, go use that list of coping skills your therapist gave you, or you're just hungry, go get a snack, you'll be fine. Oh, you need a nap, you didn't sleep well last night. And so again, these are like well-intentioned things. Parents are thinking, oh, this is going to help them feel better or give them a solution. But what happens is, if we're coming back to the visual of you're on fire, is if somebody's saying, oh, just go take a nap, you'll feel better. It's oversimplifying for them how easy it will be for them to feel better, because most times that's not going to help them. And so when they receive these messages, what it does is gives them this internalized message that, well, if it's that easy for everyone else and it's not that easy for me, then there must be something wrong with me. So that inability for the parent to hold the emotion, to sit with it, to just say like, yeah, this is really hard for you and I'm here with you. I'm sitting in this dark hole with you and I don't know the way out right now. Like, that's okay. But when we say, oh, it's very simple to get yourself out of this, it's an invalidating, painful, and sometimes really hard thing for a teenager to hear, because it's not that easy for them.
Yeah. And it can be hard, like you said earlier today, how difficult it is as a parent to see your child, your teen, even your adult child in pain, that we will naturally have our own emotional reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if, and I think I experienced this yesterday with my kid, like there was a solution. It just wasn't the one that they wanted. They just wanted to vent to me. And so it's hard then too, because you do have life experience and perspectives that you can see more possibilities perhaps than the teenager in their emotions in front of you. But that restraint to sit with that and wait for them to ask for it, or to ask them, do you want advice or do you just want me to be here with you? It's hard. It's hard not to jump in with the solution.
Yeah, I feel like parents need to take home that question that you just shared of, do you want advice or do you want me to just sit here with you? Right?
Yeah, the ask, I think, it helps a lot to ask what they need.
Yes. Even if they don't know it. It's like, it's still, if it could become a habit of asking them, because at some point they're going to know, even if they don't know now. Mm-hmm. And it's even sending a message that we really do believe that people know what they need, even if they can't access it, if their emotions are on fire and it's going to take them some time. A parent being able to ask them is sending a message that, you're likely going to know, or you're going to know really better than me, at least at some point.
Or tolerating that there might not be an answer right now. Like, if you don't know, that's okay. I'm here for you when you're ready, or if you want to talk, let me know.
I think this, it reminds me, this starts so young, doesn't it, Katie? Like, if sometimes you just want to like turn back time and redo those little bitty
Yeah.
ages, because I do think that there's a lot that can be set up in terms of even for parents, like even for parents to, because I don't necessarily think that everything goes super smooth and wonderful and perfect, and then all of a sudden they hit teenage, and then all of a sudden there are problems, right? That there's usually some sort of warm up to this, and maybe some missed opportunities. I'm a big person about early intervention.
Yeah, I think, and I truly believe, and maybe this is somewhat anecdotal, but I truly believe that if parents can master the skill of validation, that it makes everything else run so much more smoothly. Like I have shared in my book and here on this podcast, like I have a teenager who struggled with mental health issues, but along the way, we've maintained a strong relationship. And I don't mean like they always want me around, like developmentally strong relationship. And I think that that's at the core, is that I've always been able to listen and to validate and trust that my child is an autonomous being who has their own thoughts, feelings, and needs that are not about being a reflection of me. And so I think that core skill can pave the way for everything else, even if it's done imperfectly along the way.
So many good like nuggets in here and every single page of the book. So highly recommend that people grab a copy if they feel like, ooh, a curiosity or interest, or looking for some more tangible like advice on how to navigate parenting. But I'd love to just give you the opportunity to share any message of hope, or something, if parents are listening, something you'd really want to share with them, if they take away from this conversation that you really want them to go home and try.
Yeah, I think my summary based on what we've been talking about, and really my message behind all of it, is that parents go first. When you can learn the skills to manage your emotions, when you can model managing your emotions, when you can understand how the way you were parented impacts how you are parenting, and then heal those wounds, those are things that are going to help you the most in your parent-teen relationship, and they're going to help your teen more than any other practical skill that you're trying to tell them to do in the moment. And so I really invite parents to think about themselves as a really powerful agent of change in helping their teens heal.
When I think about even some of the prevention kind of stuff, is helping parents early on. Lizzie and I talk with many different specialists, but about cultivating mindfulness, right? That self-awareness, even early on when you have a newborn, right? Even when you're pregnant. I've had so many pregnant women in my MBSR class, which is phenomenal for them to begin that mindful awareness of even their own thoughts about their unborn child.
Yeah, that awareness is everything. I think it's that core skill.
Yeah.
Foundation.
I love that. So I like to end with parents first. I like that. You said parents first.
Yeah, parents go first.
Yeah. We won't see a child or teen in our practice until the parents go first. So we're on the same page.
We are.
One final thing I'm wondering, we love to do book studies. We're a big book study, and it would be really cool for you to do a book study with this. Have you ever done that?
I have thought about it. I have not yet, because like I said, our group program runs on the book. So it's kind of like a book study, but it is clinical. It's skills-based.
Yeah.
So I do think a book study would be valuable, but I haven't gotten there yet. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I really, for me, book studies have been a way for that prevention work. So throughout my whole career, I have kind of a side business, right? I have my clinical practice, and then my mindfulness center. So where, I'm really working always to help people have these tools. And I feel like your book is a wonderful one to have parents of teens, of just emerging teens, because it's like another opportunity to be like, okay, am I ready for this? Teenage years.
Get ready.
Yeah.
You're not ready. None of us are ready, but you will
Yeah,
be
let's
ready.
help you get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
So maybe we'll collaborate and do a book study. That would be fun.
That sounds awesome.
Okay,
Cool.
cool.
Well, we'll link below where to buy the book and support. And if you have any social media or websites, we'll share that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Katie, so much. And
Yeah.
we will be recommending your book to all of our people.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yay, thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If it spoke to you, it'll probably speak to someone you love too. Share it with a friend and leave us a 5-star review to help spread the message it's never too late to heal.